Hello everyone, Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense. Thank you for watching. I have another Monday quarterback video for you. This video, I'll go ahead and give you some forewarning on it. There is no body cam footage whatsoever for this video. You're probably asking yourself, well, why the hell are you doing a video on this? I still think that with the information that is being provided in this critical incident briefing, that there's still some learning points in there. So I'll play the video and I'll pause intermittently here and there to talk about things that are going on to better explain what's going on, and to talk about things that are being done right and or done wrong. So no offense taken if you want to completely skip this video because there's no action shots in it, but like I said, there's still some learning points. So without further ado, here we go.
This following critical incident briefing is intended to provide you with information about a recent incident, understanding of the circumstances and the evidence involved. We hope this provides you with a better Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department conducts a big event for all involved. Compliance with the law and Sheriff's Department. Investigators and attorneys, someone is struck by gunfire. These analysis of significant, our understanding, we do not draw conclusions about war training until of caution. The images and information you are about to see may be disturbing. When an attack, it can be graphic and 2021. Viewer discretion is advised.
Sure.
On August 11, 2021, at approximately 12:16 p.m., a Santa Clarita deputy initiated a traffic stop of a vehicle with expired registration which was traveling on the access road west of the southbound lanes of Interstate 5 near Templin Highway. During the contact, the driver indicated he was not in possession of his driver's license. The driver, who was a sole occupant, was later identified as 34-year-old Adrian Sanchez. While the deputy was talking to Sanchez, he noticed Sanchez appeared to be positioning his body to block the deputy's view of the center console area of the vehicle. The deputy had Sanchez exit his vehicle. The deputy then escorted Sanchez to his patrol vehicle and placed him unhandcuffed in the back seat.
All right. So first things first, people's body language really shows a lot about what they're trying to do. Even a person's eyes can tell you a lot about what they're thinking. The old saying of a person's eyes are a windows to their soul. I mean, that's that's actually kind of accurate. There's some times where not even having a whole lot of conversation with someone, just coming across them, just looking at their eyes, you can tell a lot in that first encounter just by how that person eyes are, what they're looking at, and what they're not looking at, and I think coupled with some of the facial expressions and probably picking up on some of the mannerisms, there's a lot you can tell just from that initial contact with someone, just based on their eyes alone. But their body language, things they're trying to do, is obviously, according to this deputy, he's trying to position himself in a way to block the view of what's in or around the middle console area. And it's interesting, too, that some of these criminals will go through these extra lengths to try and conceal something, and they inadvertently bring a lot of attention to something that a lot of times, ordinarily, there was no fucking attention being brought to it in the first place. There's been times where I've had people do this kind of deceitful kind of shit where they're trying to hide something, and if it weren't for them acting the way they were, I never would have thought anything of it. And it's like they told on themselves. If this dude's acting fishy enough and this deputy has enough to detain him in the back of the patrol car, he should have went ahead and cuffed his ass. I don't think it's a good idea to put a uncuffed person in the back seat to detain them. If you're detaining them in the back seat, then cuffs should definitely be put on. Now, it doesn't talk about whether or not he patted him down or not. And that's an issue too within law enforcement. There's a lot of times not a lot of good pat downs being done. I haven't covered the video yet because I've been so freaking backlogged on getting some of these videos done. But there's a video out of Chicago where they arrested a guy, handcuffed him, put him back in the squad. They get to the jail and they go to the back door to open it to get him out, to walk him in the jail. The dude has a gun and starts fucking shooting at the officers. So that kind of stuff happens. Well, not the shooting at them when they open the door, but improper pat downs, or not even doing pat downs at all. That goes on so freaking much. It's mind boggling. Like why? Why do you skimp on doing a good pat down? It blows my mind. And actually, interestingly enough, or right before I started to record this video, a friend of mine sent me a little video clip thing on Messenger, and it showed it was like a camera set down on something, and it was showing from the side these looked like juveniles. They had their hands up against this wall, and this officer was patting them down, and the first one gets patted down and he moves on to the next. Well, that first one reaches down into his belt area, pulls a freaking knife out, and then shoves it up under it looked like a storage container that they were leaned up against, but kind of hides it under there. And it was right there. The officer was patting him down, patting around that area, and he freaking missed this big ass Michael Myers fucking butcher knife. So the crappy pat downs, people are gambling with their lives when they don't do proper pat downs. The way to know if you are doing proper pat downs is if you get a copious amount of complaints about your pat downs. If you're being accused of inappropriately touching people during your pat downs, then chances are that means you're doing a good pat down. A good pat down should be that invasive. It should be just like what TSA does at the airports. This patting someone on the sides and then letting them go, kind of like that video where it looked like it was like at a concert or something. There's like the security guard, looks like he's wearing like a poncho or something, and he's not even like really touching people. You just see him kind of take his hands up, touches the shoulders, comes down, touches the elbows, touches the waistline, and then waves them on through. That video, it was popular a while back and made its rounds. What are you expecting for safety and security if you do not do good pat downs? Like I said, you're gambling with your life when you don't do a good pat down. So pat them down and get some complaints. Like I said, that's how you will know if your pat downs are good or not. If they start complaining about you patting them down, then you're doing a good job.
The deputy returned to Sanchez's vehicle and noticed a handgun on the driver's seat.
So he noticed it on the driver's seat. So that makes me wonder, when he pulled this guy out of the car, like if it was truly in this position right here, which I don't think it was. I think this is obviously this is an after the fact photo, because we see the officer's taser sitting in the seat right here. And you're going to find out why it's there. So it could have been in between the seat and the console. But even then, you would think that, it would be noticeable once he pulled him out of the car if it was, in fact, sitting on the seat. And, that alone should have threw out some red flags. If you see one gun, then you must assume there's a second gun. And that leads into my belief of why the dude should have been cuffed. I mean, if he had another gun on him, as soon as that deputy got back to that car to open the door, he could have been shot right in the face.
The deputy proceeded to walk back to his patrol vehicle with the intention of handcuffing Sanchez. When the deputy recontacted Sanchez, he became uncooperative and the deputy requested backup to his location. Sanchez eventually calmed down and the deputy opened the rear door of his patrol vehicle to handcuff him. Sanchez pushed the deputy, which led to a brief struggle. Sanchez was able to escape from the backseat of the patrol vehicle and ran northbound on the access road.
Yeah, so if for whatever reason you put someone in the back of your car and you don't freaking cuff them, which you shouldn't do, and something like this, even if they've you put cuffs on them but they somehow slipped one off, don't even risk it opening the door on them. Wait for that backup to get there. Like, he called for the backup. Probably the safest thing for him to do is go ahead and wait for it. Obviously, the dude's not going to be able to open the door from the inside. If there's cages on the back windows, then obviously the dude's not going to be able to break out through those. So he's stuck where he's at, right? He's not going anywhere unless he somehow manages to break out the rear windshield, which typically those don't have cages over them. Let him sit there. Wait for that backup to get there. 2 is better than 1. So if it's to the point where you got to call for backup, just wait. It's always better to have that second person there with you to be able to dominate someone.
Santa Clarita 63 boys. Can I get a unit backup? I'm calling for the backseat of my car. I'm going to be on the 5 south, approximately 3 miles south of Vista del Lago. It's going to be on the brake stop, truck stop.
Citizen Santa Clarita 63 boys requesting 2 units backup and unco-op in the backseat of his car. He's going to be on the 5 freeway southbound, about 3 miles south of the Vista del Lago. The Vista del Lago exit and the truck stop. Is there a unit to respond for backup in 3 or less?
1 and 15.
Copy 806 David 1 was in 15. Respond for backup. 806 David 1.
Copy. What's the unit requesting backup?
There's going to be 3 boys.
6'5" David and about 10. 6'5" David.
6'5" David and 10. Also respond for the backup request, please.
6'5" David copies code.
The deputy initiated emergent radio traffic and lost sight of Sanchez. In an attempt to locate Sanchez, the deputy drove his patrol vehicle to an elevated dirt road west of the interstate. He observed Sanchez stumble down the hill to the access road and run back in the direction of his parked vehicle. The deputy exited his patrol vehicle and began running towards Sanchez's vehicle, which still contained the firearm. Sanchez entered his vehicle and proceeded to sit in the driver's seat. The deputy contacted Sanchez through the open driver's door, and a struggle ensued as the deputy attempted to remove Sanchez from the driver's seat. The deputy was unsuccessful, and Sanchez started his vehicle, drove it forward, and proceeded to drive through a chain-link fence onto the southbound shoulder of Interstate 5, dragging the deputy who was still holding on to Sanchez's upper body. The deputy pulled the steering wheel to the right, and the vehicle went off the interstate, crashed through a chain-link fence, and onto a dirt embankment on the side of the road. The deputy, who was still partially inside the open driver's side door, deployed the taser on Sanchez, but it had no effect. The deputy then unholstered his duty firearm, and Sanchez grabbed the...
So he deployed taser on the guy, and it was ineffective. So I suspect that the reason why it was ineffective is that both probes hit within such close proximity to each other that it was unable to achieve neuromuscular incapacitation. And the remedy for that is to take the gun itself and drive it into the target at a further point away from where the probes are. That will complete the circuit, and you will be able to achieve neuromuscular incapacitation that way. Also, that it's also possible that the person's clothing caused a clothing entanglement and or a disconnect, and it wasn't able to make connectivity to his body. And it's also possible that one probe hit, one probe missed, which I don't see anything that looks like a probe within the floorboard or anything like that. really don't even see the wires from the taser unit. We know this is an expended cartridge, but there's no wires attached to the end of it. Actually, you know what? I think this is a wire right here. Possibly. That's a little difficult to tell. I think that might be a taser wire. So it could be possible that one wire missed completely and went over this way and one hit him. Even then, still, if one probes in, then of course the way to remedy this is to, again, take the gun and drive it into a further point away from that one probe, and that will complete the circuit, and you'll be able to achieve NMI.
Deputy's firearm. They struggled for control of the firearm, and the deputy was able to arm, and Sanchez grabbed the deputy's firearm.
So obviously, we can't see how the firearm is being drawn and presented, but firing from retention is a skill that is, one, it needs to be learned under the watchful eye of a competent instructor. You don't want to see this on the internet and then try to go do it on your own. Learn it, and then it's something that you should practice every so often when you go practice on your own after you've learned the things from someone who's teaching it to you. That way you stay proficient with those skills. Shooting from retention can present some issues, and drawing and presenting your firearm within close proximity to another person and not properly going into a retention posture can present some problems. Number one being the person can gain better leverage over your limb and control where that limb is pointing at, and can exert better control and possibly disarm that weapon out of your hand. So if you're within bad breath distance of someone, you obviously need to be and you got to go to the gun, you obviously need to be doing it in a retention posture. And if not, like I said, it can be easily taken away. But even then, when you go into a retention posture, there's still some things that you should be doing to maximize your effectiveness.
They struggled for control of the firearm, and the deputy was able to fire one round, striking Sanchez. The deputy's firearm then malfunctioned.
So this right here, so obviously we don't know why the firearm malfunctioned. It's possible that the suspect had a hold of the weapon when it fired, and he prevented the slide from fully cycling to eject the empty casing and strip a new round out of the magazine and load it. It's also possible that he was not holding the gun properly in a retention posture, and the slide went backwards into his chest or part of his uniform and was not able to go all the way back, and he ended up incurring a malfunction there.
The deputy was able to clear the malfunction, and as Sanchez reached for his own handgun, the deputy fired an additional 7 rounds towards Sanchez, striking him in the upper torso.
6-3 boy, confirm backup only is sufficient at this time, or did you need your unit's code to extend an ETA?
Let's actually just took off on right now.
Santa Cruz Unit 6-3 boy had that co-op in the back seat take off on him. Again, he was going to be southbound on the 5 freeway, 3 miles south of the Vista del Lago exit. Is there unit to respond in 10 or less?
Hey, man, do you want a code?
Affirmative. The person took off on him.
Hey, affirmative code.
806 Dava 1, respond code 3, 806 Dava 1.
From Real North Chain, cover. Hey, 60 Frank Tom can be there in about 10.
Copy 60 Frank Tom and 10. All units hold the air, please. Is there a sergeant to respond?
6 Sam about 10.
60 Sam and 10. And 63 boy, do you have a description?
Male white with a tank top and shorts.
Male white with a blue tank top and shorts. Lasting direction?
Southbound.
And lastly, running southbound on the 5 freeway. Again, for units responding, He had an co-op in the back seat, last seen running southbound on the 5 freeway, and he was parked 3 miles south of the Vista Del Lago exit. An arrow is switching.
Hey, confirm he was at the brake check.
6-3 boy, confirm you were at the brake check off the 5? Copy your info pursuit. What's your 1020? Six-three boy, what's your 1020?
SCCQ patch in Parksboro and check on.
All right, so they mentioned patch earlier, and then you hear it again. So patch is a way to have interoperability between agencies who have different frequencies. So there are some standardizations with two-way radio communications in the public safety sector, but there's also a lot of lacking in standardization in regards to that. So you've got some agencies out there that are operating on VHF, and even within these VHF and UHF, you have analog, and then you have digital. So there are some agencies out there that are still VHF or UHF analog. There are some that within a certain area there may be a mix of the two. So you may have, within one county, this group over here has VHF analog, this group over here has UHF digital, and then this group over here has 800 megahertz. So agencies use VHF, UHF, 700, 800, and 900 megahertz. And those things do not talk to each other. You can't take a UHF radio and talk to a VHF radio. They're not compatible. There's just no way to do that unless you have a bank of radio equipment that is interconnected to each other, the repeaters and everything, that you can have Group A over here with VHF. They key up, it goes to the tower site, it rebroadcasts over through UHF, and then people in Group B with the UHF can hear what the VHF people are saying. But if you turn that thing off, they go right back to not being able to talk to each other. So the patch is what he's talking about is patching in another entity so that they can listen and communicate with each other on what's going on here. It's not every area fully utilizes something like that. Some areas don't have this capability. Some areas it just that doesn't exist. Some places it does exist, but it is a specialty thing that's set up for natural disaster things, and usually your emergency management entity will have to go set that up, kind of thing. But I wish that there was some type of national standard that said that all public safety agencies are going to use this system. That way, if you're in freaking California and you're on 800 megahertz trunking, you can come to New York and they could take one of your radios and plug it into the system, and boom, you're talking to each other in no time. Anyway, moving on.
What's emergent?
Check on arrow.
Arrow is switching. Parksboro units, you've been patched in with Santa Clarita units. 63 boy had a suspect that was detained in his backseat, ran from him. He's now in foot pursuit. Last known location was going to be on the 5 southbound, 3 miles south of the Vista Del Lago truck stop. Is there a Parksboro unit that's available to respond in 5 or less?
So this, are you able to respond in 5 or less? So this to me makes me think that they're asking them if they can respond in 5 minutes or less. This type of radio talking is alien to me. Like in my area, nobody talks like this. And also how they're doing the dispatching. I'm not saying she's not talking good on the radio. I mean, she's very clear and concise, but just I guess you could almost say it's, what would be a good way to describe it? Like a dialect or, I don't know. I can't think of the word. It's just the way they're talking. It's just, I don't know. It sounds alien to me. Or not, maybe not alien, but it sounds odd.
Any parks unit in the area to respond? There's multiple units. 832 run, David 1, your ETA. Is there any Pyramid Lake unit to respond to the 5 freeway and Vista del Lago? 6-3 boy, can you advise your 1020?
Sam will be responding from Lake Hughes Road about 10. 831 Sam.
831 Sam is from Lake Hughes Road in 10. 6-3 boy, when you're able, your 1020.
60 boy, swing, enemy. Suspect down. I'm going to be on the rest stop. Just to the shoulder. One suspect.
Copy 998, suspect down at the rest stop, and the suspect again is down. 60 boy, confirm all units are with you or accounted for?
Affirmative. I'm okay. I can use my location if we have a CHP shut down, at least the right 2 lanes. We'll go from there.
10-4 notifying CHP for the right 2 lanes, and 6-3 boy, just advise your 1020. I know you're at the rest stop, but are you off the 5 freeway? Is there a cross street there?
I'm going to be off the freeway. It's going to be a brake inspection point just to the right.
To the right of the 5 freeway at the rest stop at the brake section point.
So there are radio systems out there that allow for tracking of the radios, and that's just the cat's meow. That is the best thing to be able to have, is the ability to locate a radio via GPS. For instance like this, where there's some kind of confusion about where they're at, the dispatcher would be able to see on their screen precisely where this person is at, and could then more accurately describe to the responding units how they need to get to them. Or in the case of the officer being critically injured and they say, shots fired, officer down, and then they don't hear anything else after that, again, a radio able to be tracked via GPS, they would be able to direct responding units to get to the downed officer. So, and again, like I said, the radio systems all across this country are different. You have Motorola systems, you've got Kenwood systems, you've got ICOM systems, and then there's some other agencies that use some other stuff. So it's a damn mess, to say the least. But the products out there that do offer the GPS for the radios, that's the way to go. If you can put it in your budget to be able to get that, then by all means do that.
Can you check on the park ranger that works up in that area?
There's multiple units. There was just the one suspect. He had him detained in the back seat, but he became unco-op and left the vehicle. Again, they're going to be off the 5 freeway near a rest stop, and the last hard location was going to be south of the Vista del Lago. Was there an additional unit with traffic?
Hey, ma'am, 80681, can you check on the park ranger that works up in that area, please?
Is there a parks ranger that's in the area of Vista del Lago and the 5 freeway near the rest stop up off the freeway? Identify.
if he's at the brake check.
So when that officer asked about checking on the park ranger, and then she broadcast out, so it's possible that from her terminal, she was able to key up some different frequencies from her terminal, and it was being patched through, and she was broadcasting out, and the broadcast was going through the channel that this initial officer was on, but then it's also rebroadcasting through another frequency that this park ranger could be on. So that type of interoperability technology and capability is freaking awesome. And if you got the budget to be able to have that kind of stuff included, by all means, you need to have that shit included.
He is 1 mile north of Templin Highway.
Copy at the brake check, 1 mile north of Templin Highway.
Thank you.
831 David 1, do you have a ETA?
I'm just waiting for my unit to come. There's going to be a little turnaround to the bridge, or a little shack. Go into there and you can swing around to the brake check.
Copy to follow the turnaround around the bridge, and then you'll be able to swing into the brake check. 60 San Mr. ETA now.
Brake check up back on fire chip.
Fire's 914N.
Oh, still 15 away.
60 Sam is still 15 out. 831 Sam, did you have a close to ETA? Multiple units, 831 Sam, only your ETA, please. $831 Sam, still from the 5 freeway, and we're still waiting on CHP to answer.
Los Angeles County Fire.
So another thing to talk about with the radio stuff, it's also possible that within this particular area, the dispatch center is more of a centralized dispatch center that is capable of servicing multiple agencies. There are some areas where each agency has their own dispatch center. So, for example, in my area, our city police has its own dispatch center. Our sheriff's office has its own dispatch center. Our state police post has its own dispatch center. Our campus police has its own dispatch center. And our ambulance provider has its own dispatch center. Those are 5 different dispatch centers located in 5 different places. And the city police, the county, and the state are all capable of receiving 911 calls. Not too far from us, in another county, they have a central dispatch center that is just one entity that services all the emergency services in that county. That's the type of model that I think is most optimal, especially for a larger population area. It doesn't fully make any sense to me, other than for having for redundancy backup purposes. But other than that, it just does not make sense to me for multiple law enforcement and emergency service entities to have their own separate dispatch centers. I think that sort of a fusion center model is the best way to go for a particular county. That way, it can be more like a command and control center, and all the dispatchers are able to basically see each other or very easily communicate with each other. And if there's going to be a watch commander or something like that from each agency that could be in there, the flow of information is just going to be, quicker and faster, and it's just going to be more centralized and just better overall for command and control. Now, like I said, it wouldn't hurt that if each agency did maintain an emergency backup center in the event that something happened to the main building, catastrophic natural disaster or something like that knocks out the big building, then boom, there's a backup site at the sheriff's office that they can go to and take over operations, whatever. But just for day-to-day operations, for especially large areas, it just makes no sense to me to have all these different dispatch centers. I just really think that the best way to do it is roll them all into one and kind of operate it sort of like a fusion center in a way. Moving on.
Department paramedics arrived on scene and administered medical aid to Sanchez, but he was pronounced dead at the scene. The deputy was transported to a local hospital where he was treated for leg injuries and later released. The deputy received subsequent medical treatment for an ankle sprain and injuries to his neck. A loaded 6-hour .380 caliber semi-automatic handgun was recovered from the driver's seat of Sanchez.
So, a SIG, that's a pretty nice gun. That's for people who aren't like into guns and stuff, I mean, SIG is a pretty big brand name. I can't think of, what would be the more accurate equivalent to like cars or something like that. But it would be kind of like a luxury car, a SIG brand is. So, this guy, did he lawfully possess this? I don't know. It could be stolen for all I know.
Sanchez's vehicle. During a further search of Sanchez's vehicle, a Smith & Wesson .38 special caliber revolver with expended shell casings in the cylinder and a loaded Smith & Wesson 9mm semi-automatic handgun were recovered.
So that kind of Smith & Wesson, that's a cheaper kind of, that particular model is kind of a cheaper little gun. I can see something like that, being possessed by, normal people or whatever, and certainly, the revolver as well. But the SIG, like I said, the SIG's more of a kind of like a luxury gun. Like you don't see SIGs very often with criminals.
Recovered from the front passenger seat of the vehicle. Also recovered from Sanchez's vehicle was approximately 1 pound of methamphetamine, approximately 1 pound of marijuana.
Yeah, so this definitely does not look like it's for personal use.
And a large amount of U.S. currency. Sanchez had previously been convicted for narcotics sale, burglary, and carrying a concealed dirk or dagger. The Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department has begun a thorough and in-depth investigation. Homicide investigators will additional involved evidence has begun burglary and a large amount of U.S. currency. Sanchez had previously been
All right, so there you have it. I guess, obviously there was no body cam footage involved in this video, so it's a little bit more of a unique video, but there's still some learning points in this video. This guy, previously being convicted of narcotic sales and burglary, and carrying a concealed dirk or dagger. That's the first time I've heard of a dirk. And then having this amount of drugs in his vehicle. Like, with those, his background, not surprised. I can't remember if they had mentioned he was a felon or not. I would suspect that he's possibly a felon. So the guns, I don't know if they were legally purchased or if he obtained them through some other means and was in illegal possession of them. Typically, your criminal offenders who've gotten to this level of drug dealing have usually caught enough charges in the past to have felony level convictions, and these people are not going out to gun stores and buying guns lawfully. They're not even supposed to be in possession of guns yet, but yet they are still getting access to guns. How are they getting access to guns? Well, one thing is they could be having friends and or family members who do not have felony convictions going out and doing illegal straw purchases. That's one way. Another way is what the anti-gun crowd calls the loophole. Going to a gun show and buying a gun. That's not always the case, but doing a simple meet and greet on, say, for example, Facebook Marketplace or something like that. They can see a gun that was listed for sale or just a picture of a gun, and they can send private messages and then go meet up with someone and buy that gun from them. And of course, that individual selling it does not have the luxury of being able to perform a background check because the government does not provide that ability to its private citizens. If the anti-gun crowd wanted to do anything helpful, what they could do is push for some legislation to alter our current gun laws and open up the NICS system for private citizens to be able to utilize. Because I can guarantee you, private citizens would love to be able to use the NICS system to know whether or not the person they're selling to should be able to possess that or not. But the overwhelming majority of these convicted felons getting guns comes from stolen guns. How are they stealing these guns? Well, some of them will buy them from people who have broken into a gun store and stolen guns and stuff out of there. But a lot of it comes from taking them out of vehicles and taking them from people's homes where people have negligently left these guns unsecured while unattended. Meaning, for example, the vehicle, they left it in the middle console that doesn't even freaking lock. And someone came along and sometimes, believe it or not, they just opened the freaking door of the car because that careless person also forgot to lock their fucking door. So, it happens so many freaking times. Criminals will be out car hopping, come across a car, doors open, they open it, rummage through, open that middle console that doesn't even have a lock on it, and voila, they got a gun. Or they'll go to the glove box that either doesn't have a lock on it or it does have a lock but they never locked it, and voila, there's a gun. Or it's just tucked up under the seat and you guess it, voila, they got a gun. And then in people's homes. So there's a lot of people who will leave a gun on a nightstand, in a nightstand, under the pillow, under the corner of the mattress, propped up behind the door in the bedroom, propped up in the right inside the closet, up on the top shelf of the closet, kind of within view and reach once you open it. And these guns are operable and accessible to unauthorized people. So if you are a lawful and responsible gun owner, then you should be making your weapons that you leave behind at home or leave behind in the car inaccessible or inoperable to unauthorized users. If you're not willing to take your gun into work, you want to leave it in the car, put it in the glove box and lock the glove box. Buy a specialty safe for the car to leave the gun in. If you are leaving your gun at home while you go to work for 8 to 12 hours out of the day, then leave that gun in a safe at home. Or if you bought the gun, new or even used and it came with a cable lock on it, put the fucking cable lock in it before you leave. You should not be making your guns easy for these criminals to steal. And when I say that, some people will scoff at that, and they're like, "Well, my freedoms, I shouldn't have to lock my shit up. The criminal should be punished." You know what? I agree with you. The criminal should be punished, but you're fucking stupid if you can't realize the fact that your actions and other people who do the same actions as you and they just happen to, have the bad moment where their shit gets stolen, that is setting us up for fucking failure. the anti-gun crowd is keeping a tally with all these shootings, and it's giving them more ammo to come after our gun rights. Of course, at time of recording right now, it is June 13th. There's some bipartisan talks right now about gun control in response to a couple of mass shootings that occurred, and in response to some incorrectly labeled incidents that were labeled as mass shootings, but they technically technically were not in the sense that, when you think of a mass shooting like Columbine or something like that, these incidents were not mass shootings. They were just gang members shooting each other in a public area, but then it got labeled as a mass shooting, like as an active shooter event. These little thugs, where are they getting these guns from? They're not lawfully buying them. They're fucking stealing them for the most part. And so all these street shootings in Chicago, in these big cities, every town, USA, all those numbers are adding up exponentially. And to be, and to be fair, a lot of the statistics that they use for the gun violence statistics are also justified use of force incidents and suicides. They also take those and add them into gun violence. But the actual, true, legit criminal aggressors using guns on innocent people, those numbers are, they are rising. Some of these large cities, their murder rates are fucking going through the roof. And not all of them are, criminal aggressors shooting innocent people. It's criminal aggressors shooting criminal aggressors. It's gang violence, street thug against street thug. But those numbers are they're going up. And these anti-gun groups, they're keeping a tally. And as these numbers rise and rise and rise and rise and rise, guess what? That's more ammo to use against you and I to take our fucking rights away from us. I hate it. I hate to think about it. I hate to admit that this is probably going to happen, but there is most likely at some point within the next 20 years going to be some significant changes in our gun laws. I would not be surprised to find if the left manages to somehow have the Second Amendment altered or even repealed. And if not that, then I certainly believe that some type of, Clinton-type federal assault weapon ban will come back into existence. It's inevitable with, the political landscape and the overall decay of this society and everything, but the numbers aren't fucking helping. They're not. And why are the numbers rising? Because of negligent gun owners, lawful gun owners, the people who went out and bought their guns lawfully. They're good-natured people. They're just a little fucking stupid in how they store their guns when they're not having them on them. They're leaving them in their cars unattended and leaving them to where they can be easily stolen. Leaving them at home when they leave and leaving them in a condition where they can be easily stolen. The best way to prevent your gun from being stolen is to have it on you. It's a lot harder for a criminal to take your gun from you than it is for them to go into your house while you're gone for 8 hours a day and then find it sitting on top of your nightstand. Why are people leaving their guns at home and leaving them in the cars? Bullshit anti-gun zones. So, obviously I think that anti-gun zones should be abolished. Obviously that doesn't do anything. And if we could abolish that, then I think we'd have less people leaving, certainly their handguns at home. So we'd have less people leaving handguns at home and moving the cars, and they'd actually have them on them. Obviously, that wouldn't fix the issue of people leaving rifles at home unsecured and then people bringing them home to steal those, but it would at least reduce, to some degree, I think, the theft of handguns if people were actually able to carry them with them into work. But a lot of people can't because the company they have for has a gun-free policy, or the actual property they're on is legally a gun-free zone, and they'll get in actual legal trouble for bringing it in there. Anyway, I feel like I kind of went on a little bit of a rant talking about the gun stuff. If you like what you hear and see, go ahead and give me a like and a share. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and stay tuned for more Monday quarterback videos. Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense. Thank you for watching.